Sometimes men don't just walk away forever. They disappear, they pull back, and then suddenly, out of nowhere, you get the feeling he's circling back around. But here's the truth, his return isn't always about love. Sometimes it's about testing you, testing to see if you're the same person he left, testing to see if you've grown, if you've changed, or if you're still available to play the same role you played before. So when he comes back, the question isn't, is he serious? The real question is, are you ready to show him that the rules have changed? This is the test he doesn't even know he's giving you. If you pass it, you show him that you're not just waiting for him. You're living a life that doesn't revolve around him. If you fail it, you hand him all the power again, and history repeats itself. The test isn't about whether he still wants you. It's about whether you still value yourself enough to demand more this time around. When a man decides to circle back into your life, it's rarely as spontaneous as it looks on the surface. He may frame it as a casual, "Hey, just thought I'd check in," or disguise it under small talk. But make no mistake, there's intention behind it. People don't suddenly appear in your messages or your world without some curiosity about whether the door they once walked out of is still cracked open. His reappearance is a way of taking the temperature, of seeing if the conditions are safe enough to slide back in without much resistance. Most men come back because of comfort, not clarity. You were once his comfort zone, the place where he could access affection, validation, or attention without working too hard for it. When the outside world doesn't give him that same warmth, or when his new options fail to satisfy, he remembers you, the person who once gave freely. So his return is not always about a realization of love. Sometimes it's about convenience. He's checking to see if the comfort is still available. You have to understand that men rarely walk back without a calculation in mind. It may not be a conscious one, but on some level, he is assessing whether you are still the same woman who was waiting, hoping, and willing to put him first, even when he didn't give you the same in return. He's not just coming back to see you. He's coming back to measure you. And this is why you have to be aware that his reappearance is a test. This test isn't obvious because he won't say, "I'm here to see if you've changed." He'll just show up, see how quickly you answer, how warmly you respond, and how much space you allow him without him having to earn it. Every message, every call, every gesture from you is data for him. It tells him whether the dynamics have shifted or whether he can pick up exactly where he left off. If you respond with instant excitement, no questions asked, he learns that your door is always open no matter how he treated you before. But if you show him that you're not waiting by the door, that your life is moving, that your standards are sharper, then the test starts to tilt in your favor. Because suddenly he's not just returning to an old story, he's encountering a new chapter that requires more of him. So remember, a man's return is rarely random. It is deliberate, intentional, and quietly strategic. It's not enough to ask why he came back. You must ask what version of yourself he's meeting this time, because that's what determines whether this return leads to a new beginning or just another repeat of the same cycle. When he comes back, he won't say, "I'm here to test you." He won't admit that he's observing how you react, because even he might not realize it consciously. But make no mistake, his actions are designed to see what you'll allow. This is what I call the silent test. It's not spoken, it's not written, but it plays out in every interaction between you and him. The silent test starts the very moment he reappears. How quickly do you reply to his messages? Do you let him back into your space without any acknowledgement of the past? Do you give him warmth, affection, and attention without him proving himself? These are all little signals that tell him whether the rules are the same as before or whether you've raised your standards. He's testing your emotional availability without saying a word. If you act as if his absence never happened, if you act like the pain he caused can be erased with a simple, "Oh, hey, how have you been?" then he learns that disappearing and reappearing has no real cost. He sees that he can vanish when he feels like it, and you'll still be there when he decides to return. That's the dangerous part of failing the silent test. You make inconsistency acceptable. But if you take a different approach, if you slow things down, if you don't instantly roll out the red carpet, if you communicate with calmness instead of eagerness, then he notices something else. He realizes that you are no longer the woman he could take for granted. The silent test reveals whether you're willing to hand him easy access again, or whether he'll have to earn his way back in. The real weight of this test lies in boundaries. Your silence when he pushes, your patience when he rushes, your refusal to ignore the past. These all speak louder than any speech you could give him. The silent test is passed not by what you say, but by what you do not allow. It's a powerful moment because without raising your voice or lecturing him, you're teaching him that this time is different. And here's the truth: most women fail the silent test, not because they're weak, but because they're eager to believe in change. They want so badly for his return to mean he's finally ready that they skip over the fact he hasn't shown anything consistent yet. Passing this test means slowing down, staying calm, and remembering that it's not about what he promises, it's about what he proves. The moment he reappears, your first instinct may be to react. Maybe it's excitement, maybe it's anger, maybe it's relief. But whatever it is, that immediate emotional response can undo your power in seconds. Because when you react, you give him control of the situation. He gets to see that his presence alone is enough to stir you, enough to shake your balance. And once he knows that, the leverage tilts back to him. But when you respond, instead of reacting, you flip the script. A response is measured, calm, and intentional. A reaction is impulsive, emotional, and often regrettable. He may send you a late-night message expecting a fast reply, and instead you take your time. He may test the waters with playful charm, expecting you to fall right back into the rhythm. But instead, you answer with poise and restraint. That difference between response and reaction is where your power lies. You see, most men are counting on your reaction. They're counting on you to get swept up in nostalgia, in memories, in hope. They know how powerful it is when you show them you're still emotionally tied to them. But when you respond instead, you send a message: I'm not moved by gestures, I'm moved by consistency. You demonstrate that his reappearance doesn't automatically guarantee him a place back in your world. Response is also about self-control. It's about allowing yourself to process before you engage. Instead of firing back an emotional message or pouring out all the things you've been holding inside, you give yourself space, you breathe, you remind yourself that this moment isn't about proving your feelings, it's about protecting your value. By responding with calmness, you make it clear that your life isn't dictated by his comings and goings. Think about it: every time you respond with grace, instead of reacting with intensity, you reset the dynamic. He begins to realize that this isn't the same person who once gave unlimited access to her heart. This is someone who knows her worth, someone who chooses carefully when and how she engages. That realization is often more powerful than any speech you could give him because it's felt rather than explained. The truth is, men don't respect emotional chaos, they respect emotional composure. The more you show him that his return doesn't control your mood, your peace, or your pace, the more he realizes he'll need to step up differently this time. Your calm response tells him that you are not the same woman he left behind. And if he wants space in your life again, it will take more than a random message or charming words. One of the biggest mistakes people make when someone comes back after leaving is acting as if nothing ever happened. They open the door, let them in, and offer the same warmth and energy as before. But here's the truth: if you reward someone for disappearing, you teach them that leaving has no consequences. You normalize inconsistency and you silently communicate. You can vanish when it suits you, and I'll still be here when you decide to return. Men learn quickly from what you allow. If every time he pulls away, you're there waiting when he comes back, he learns that absence is safe. He learns he can disconnect without losing you. And the more you show him that his disappearing act has no cost, the more often he will repeat it. It's not even malicious, it's just human nature. People repeat what works. If walking away comes with no penalty, why would he change it? But you change everything when you stop rewarding inconsistency. Instead of welcoming him with open arms, you slow him down. Instead of giving instant attention, you make him rebuild trust. Instead of letting his presence erase the pain of his absence, you acknowledge that actions have consequences. You don't do this to punish him. You do this to protect yourself. The truth is, rewarding disappearing acts robs you of your value. When someone can treat you as an option and still gain your loyalty, you reduce the weight of your presence. But when you withhold access until he shows accountability, you remind him that your time and energy are privileges, not guarantees. That's what creates respect. That's what shifts the balance of power. Remember, silence is also a form of teaching. If he leaves and you don't chase, that silence teaches him something. If he comes back and you don't rush, that patience teaches him something. If he realizes he has to work harder this time, that lesson stays with him far longer than any lecture you could give. Your response becomes the standard he must rise to, or he will realize he no longer has the same place in your life. The point is clear every time you let him re-enter without consequence. You make disappearing easier for him. Every time you set a boundary and stick to it, you make inconsistency harder. The choice is yours. Are you going to reward his absence? Or are you going to make sure your presence demands more than that? When a man comes back, many women fall into the trap of trying to prove themselves again. They want to show him they've changed, that they're still worthy, that this time will be different. But this mindset flips the dynamic the wrong way. Because the moment you're trying to prove yourself, you're placing him in the role of the judge. You're saying, you decide if I'm good enough. And that's exactly the mistake that keeps you stuck in the same cycle. The truth is, he already knows what you bring to the table. He left having experienced your love, your care, and your presence. You don't need to re-audition for a role you've already played. The test isn't about whether you can prove your worth. It's about whether he can prove his. You're not the applicant here, you're the interviewer. He's the one who needs to demonstrate growth, effort, and consistency if he wants a place in your life again. This is why you must shift from proving to approving. Approving means you're in the position of power. It means you're the one deciding if his actions align with your standards. Instead of trying to earn his validation, you're evaluating whether he earns yours. That subtle shift changes everything. It reminds him that your life is not waiting for his stamp of approval. Your life is already full, and it's his job to see if he fits into it. Approving also creates an energy of calm confidence. When you're in prove mode, you're anxious, overgiving, and desperate to show value. But when you're in approve mode, you're grounded, patient, and selective. You're not afraid of losing him because you know the real risk is losing yourself by lowering your standards. That energy is magnetic. It makes him realize that you're no longer chasing his validation. You're protecting your own. Think about how differently the conversation feels when you're approving instead of proving. He says, "I miss you." And instead of pouring your heart out in return, you calmly respond, "Actions will show me." He says, "I want to try again." And instead of convincing him of your value, you respond, "Then show me what's different this time." You've just shifted the spotlight. Now he's the one working to earn space in your world. This is how respect is built. A man doesn't respect what comes too easily, but he deeply values what challenges him to grow. When you stop trying to prove and start approving, you remind him that your love is not a prize he gets by default. It's something he must actively earn. That single shift could be the difference between falling back into an old cycle and stepping into an entirely new standard of connection. You can talk all day about what you want, what you need, and what you expect from him, but at the end of the day, boundaries are what tell the real story. Words are easy. Anyone can say, "I won't accept less." But if your actions don't match those words, he'll believe your actions over your speech. Boundaries are the invisible lines that define how people treat you, and they are far louder than any conversation you could have with him. When he comes back, he's not listening to your words, he's watching your behavior. If you say you want consistency, but you entertain his late night messages, you've taught him that inconsistency is acceptable. If you say you want effort, but you rush to see him on his terms, you've told him that effort isn't required. Your boundaries, or lack of them, become the standard he believes he can live by. The beauty of boundaries is that they don't need drama or explanation. You don't have to raise your voice, beg, or argue. A boundary says, if you want access to me, here are the terms. And when those terms aren't met, you enforce them, not with anger, but with action. You step back, you withdraw your energy, you make it clear through your behavior that the standard won't bend just because he showed up again. That clarity is powerful. Boundaries also protect you from falling into old patterns. It's easy to slip into the rhythm of how things used to be, especially if there's chemistry or history between you. But when your boundaries are firm, they act as guardrails. They stop you from driving back into the same dead-end street. They keep you aligned with your values, even when your emotions want to pull you off track. And here's the thing, real men respect boundaries. If he's serious about you, your boundaries won't scare him off. They'll inspire him to rise to meet them. If he's not serious, your boundaries will expose that truth quickly. Either way, you win. Because boundaries filter out who isn't ready, while making space for the one who actually is. So, when he comes back, don't fall into the trap of over-explaining your standards. Live them, enforce them. Show him through your actions what behavior you reward and what you will never tolerate again. Your boundaries will say more in silence than your words could ever say out loud. When a man comes back, it's tempting to believe that his return alone means he's serious. He says the right words, he reminds you of the connection, and it can feel like he's finally ready to give you what you always wanted. But the truth is, one return doesn't equal commitment. A moment of effort is not the same as a pattern of effort. The real measure of commitment isn't in what he does once. It's in what he does repeatedly. Consistency is where the truth lies. Anyone can make a grand gesture, anyone can send flowers, write a heartfelt message, or even apologize with tears. But gestures without follow-through are empty. They fade quickly, and before you know it, you're back in the same cycle, waiting for him to show up again. Consistency is different. Consistency is showing up even when it's not convenient. Consistency is effort without being asked. Consistency is proving day after day that his words and his actions match. When you value consistency, you stop being swayed by temporary highs. Instead of getting lost in how amazing it feels that he came back, you ask the harder question, can he sustain this? Because real commitment isn't about intensity, it's about stability. It's not about how loudly he promises to love you, but about how quietly and steadily he proves it over time. The danger comes when you confuse a comeback with a commitment. That's when you give too much too soon, handing him full access to your heart before he's shown that he's reliable. But if you slow down and let consistency reveal his intentions, you protect yourself. You give him the chance to prove he's different, not just by what he says in the first week, but by what he does in the weeks and months that follow. Consistency also reveals character. A man who is serious about you doesn't just show up when he feels like it. He makes you a part of his life. He doesn't disappear when things get hard. He communicates. He doesn't only give effort when he wants something. He gives effort because he values you. That's how you know his intentions are real, because consistency is not about convenience, it's about commitment. So when he comes back, don't be blinded by the excitement of the moment. Look at the pattern, not the promise. His return might start the conversation, but only his consistency will tell you whether this is the beginning of something new or just the continuation of the same old story. When he reappears, it's natural to feel a rush of emotions, hope, excitement, maybe even fear. You start wondering, will this time be different? Will he finally give me the love I deserve? But the danger is when you get so attached to the outcome that you lose sight of the process. You can't control whether he stays, whether he changes, or whether he's serious. The only thing you can control is how you show up and whether you remain true to your standards. Detachment is the power that keeps you from being pulled into old cycles. Detaching from the outcome doesn't mean you stop caring. It doesn't mean you become cold or indifferent. It means you stop hinging your entire emotional state on whether he chooses you or not. You stop making his decision the measure of your worth. When you're detached, you can enjoy the moment, listen to what he has to say, but also remain grounded in the truth that your life doesn't rise or fall based on his return. The problem with attachment is that it makes you desperate. When you're desperate for things to work out, you overlook red flags, you excuse bad behavior, you rush into giving second chances without proof of real change. But when you're detached, you see things clearly. You're no longer blinded by the fantasy of what could be. You're focused on what actually is. You give yourself the space to observe his actions without forcing them into the story you want. Detachment also creates magnetic confidence. A woman who is not attached to whether he stays or goes carries a different energy. She's not chasing, she's not begging, and she's not auditioning for love. She knows that her happiness doesn't depend on him, and that self-assurance is often the very thing that makes a man step up. Detachment makes you powerful because it shows that you have options and that you value yourself more than any single outcome. Think of it like this: attachment is gripping tightly to something fragile, hoping it won't break. Detachment is holding it gently, knowing that if it stays, it's because it belongs, and if it goes, you'll still be okay. That shift takes away the fear and pressure. It allows you to stay calm, patient, and observant instead of anxious and reactive. So when he comes back, practice detachment. Don't pin your hopes on him proving everything in one moment. Don't force the future to unfold the way you've imagined it. Step back, breathe, and remind yourself, I don't need him to stay to be okay. I only need to see the truth and act on it. That mindset gives you clarity, and clarity is the greatest protection you have. When a man comes back, the easiest mistake to make is to lower your standard just because you're happy to see him again. You might soften your expectations, thinking that lowering the bar will make it easier for him to stay. But lowering the bar never creates lasting love. It only creates temporary comfort. If anything, it teaches him that all he has to do to be with you is show up, not step up. That's why raising the standard is non-negotiable. Rising the standard doesn't mean becoming cold or impossible to please. It means making it clear that access to you now requires more effort, more consistency, and more emotional maturity than it did before. The last version of you accepted crumbs. The version he's meeting now is a woman who expects the whole meal. You're not asking for perfection. You're asking for presence, honesty, and reliability. That is the new price of admission. When you raise the standard, you shift the dynamic. He realizes he can't coast on the history you share. He can't rely on nostalgia or chemistry to carry him through. He has to meet you at a higher level than before. And here's the truth: if he's serious about you, he won't be scared off by this. He'll be inspired by it. Standards don't push away the right man, they push away the wrong one. The mistake so many people make is confusing acceptance with love. They think that lowering the bar will prove they're forgiving, that it shows they're open to trying again. But love without standards is just self-sacrifice. If you let him back without expecting more, you don't heal the past, you repeat it. Raising the bar is not about punishing him, it's about protecting you. It's about ensuring that this chapter looks different from the last. And raising the standard isn't about what you say you'll do. It's about what you actually enforce. You can't just tell him you expect consistency. You have to show him that without it, he won't have access to you. You can't just say you won't tolerate disappearing acts. You have to step back when he disappears. A standard is only as strong as the actions that back it up. So if he comes back, don't hand him the same easy path he walked before. Raise the bar make him earn it. Show him that your time, your energy, and your heart are precious, and that entry into your life now requires more than it ever did. Because if he's truly ready, he won't just meet the standard, he'll exceed it. When he comes back, it's easy to think the test is about him. Will he prove himself? Will he be consistent? Will he finally love you the way you deserve? But the deeper truth is this: the real test is not his, it's yours. It's about whether you can hold your boundaries, protect your peace, and stand by your standards when your emotions are tempting you to fall back into old patterns. This test isn't about his growth, it's about your self-respect. The moment he reappears, your emotions will try to run the show. They'll whisper, say yes, give him another chance, maybe this time will be different. And if you're not careful, those feelings will drag you right back to the very place you promised yourself you'd never return. The test then is whether you can pause, breathe, and choose from strength instead of weakness. Can you stay aligned with your standards even when your heart wants to rush ahead? Passing the test requires discipline. Discipline to wait instead of rushing in. Discipline to observe instead of assuming. Discipline to let his actions reveal the truth instead of letting your hope invent a fantasy. It's not easy because love, history, and attachment can cloud your judgment. But every time you choose discipline over impulse, you build a stronger version of yourself. That's the test you're facing. What makes this test powerful is that you can't cheat it. You can't just say you've learned your lesson. You have to live it. You have to act differently this time. You have to show through your behavior that you are not the same person who accepted less, who gave without receiving, who loved without boundaries. That's what proves you've grown. Not the words, but the actions that back them. The truth is, he's not the only one being evaluated here. Life is testing you too. It's testing whether you can handle the temptation of comfort, whether you can walk away from what doesn't serve you, whether you can stand tall in your worth. And if you can pass that test, then no matter what happens with him, you win. Because you've chosen yourself over the cycle. So when he comes back, remember, the test is not about whether he wants you. It's about whether you still want yourself enough to hold the line. The test is about whether you can prove to you that this time you will not lower your standard for the sake of keeping someone who once left. That's the test only you can pass.